Hey everyone, I have to tell you something that happened last night that still has my heart racing and my stomach in knots. I came home early from work, the house quieter than usual, and pushed open the bedroom door without thinking, keys still jingling in my hand. There she was, my wife, on our bed, flushed and breathing hard, one hand frantically pulling the sheet up over her body while her eyes went wide with pure panic. The air smelled thick with that familiar sweet musk of her arousal mixed with something sharper, and I heard the faint, unmistakable wet sound stop dead. I froze. She froze. In that split second, I knew exactly what I had walked in on. And the way her chest rose and fell under the thin fabric made my own breath catch somewhere in my throat. We've been married 8 years now, and lately the spark has been fading into something quieter, almost polite. Same house, same evenings where we sit on the couch barely touching, the television murmuring between us like a third person. I still love her deeply, God I do, but work has kept me away more nights than I care to admit. Late meetings, endless calls, leaving her alone in our cozy suburban home with its soft lamplight pooling on the wooden floors and the faint scent of her vanilla body lotion that always lingers on the pillows long after Shess left the room. It used to pull me straight to her. Now it just reminds me how much space has grown between us without either of us saying a word. That night, after I saw her like that, I quietly closed the door, the click sounding too loud in the sudden silence, and went straight to the living room like nothing had happened. I sank into the couch, hands trembling slightly as I loosened my tie, but my mind wouldn't stop replaying the image, her panicked face, lips parted, the way her thighs were still trembling under the sheet even as she tried to hide. I told myself it was none of my business, that everyone needs private moments, especially when your husband is never around enough. Yet a strange heat started building in my chest, tight and heavy. Jealousy mixed with something darker, a forbidden curiosity about what she had been doing when she thought I wasn't home. My pulse kept thudding in my ears, and I kept swallowing, trying to push the picture away, but it only pulled closer. Like gravity, I couldn't fight. I sat there in the dim light for what felt like forever, the vanilla scent drifting faintly from the hallway now, mixing with the cool night air coming through the cracked window. Part of me wanted to go back in, pretend I saw nothing, pull her close like old times, but another part, the one that made my skin feel too warm, kept whispering, what if I had stayed? What if I had said something? The shame burned low in my stomach, but it didn't stop the ache. I kept telling myself this was normal, harmless even, that marriages go through dry spells and people handle it their own way. Still, every time I closed my eyes, I saw her eyes locking onto mine for that split second wide, guilty and something else I couldn't quite name, something that made the air between us feel suddenly charged, electric, like a storm about to break right there in our quiet little house. And then, I heard the soft creak of the bed again from down the hall. Just once, hesitant, like she was waiting to see if it'd come back. My hands gripped the couch cushion harder, breath shallow, and I wondered if she could hear my heart from there. The guilt twisted tighter, but so did that darker pull. And I didn't move. Not yet. The next few days blurred into this quiet obsession I couldn't shake. I'd come home from work and catch these tiny changes in her. The way she blushed the second our eyes met in the hallway, like she was still replaying that frozen moment too. The bedroom air would carry that faint trace of her vanilla lotion mixed with something warmer, heavier, even after she'd thrown open the windows and changed the sheets twice. I'd stand there breathing it in without meaning to, my chest tightening as if the scent itself was pulling me closer to the door. Late at night, when the house was supposed to be asleep, I'd hear it. That soft, rhythmic creak of the bed frame, barely there, like a secret she thought the walls would keep. My pulse would jump every single time. I'd lie there in the guest room we'd started using more often, telling myself to roll over, to respect the space between us that had grown so wide. But instead I'd find my hand pressing against the cool wall, ear straining, heart hammering with this guilty hunger I didn't want to name. She was my wife. This was her private world. Yet every creak felt like an invitation I hadn't turned, and the shame only made the heat in my veins burn hotter. One evening I couldn't pretend anymore. I left the office early on purpose, the drive home feeling endless under a sky-threatening rain. The moment I stepped inside, I heard it again, that desperate, hushed rhythm drifting from the half-closed bedroom door. My keys stayed silent in my hand as I moved closer, shoes barely whispering on the carpet. I didn't knock. Just eased the door open a crack, enough for the warm lamplight to spill out and catch her there under the covers. Her fingers moved with this slow, aching need, lips parted on a silent breath, that vanilla scent now thick with something raw and urgent that made my throat go dry. She hadn't noticed me yet. My grip tightened on the doorknob until the metal bit into my palm. Guilt crashed over me like cold water. I'm her husband. This is wrong. I should back away right now and give her the privacy she deserves after all these quiet years apart. But the ache low in my body went out for those few stolen seconds, pulling me in as I watched, rationalizing it in my head as nothing more than making sure she was okay, that she wasn't hurting or lonely in a way I couldn't fix anymore. Then her eyes fluttered open and locked onto mine. Panic flooded her face again, cheeks burning crimson as she yanked the sheet up high, breath coming in sharp little gasps that filled the space between us. The rhythm stopped dead, leaving only the sound of our breathing. Hers trembling, before she could say a word, before the shame could swallow me whole. The words slipped out soft and hoarse, like they belonged to someone else entirely. Keep going, I'll wait in the living room. I turned away fast, legs unsteady as I walked down the hall, the carpet suddenly too soft under my feet. In the living room I sank into the couch, whole body on fire, hating myself for saying it, for encouraging whatever this was becoming. Yet her flushed skin and those wide, startled eyes kept replaying behind my eyelids, pulling at me with this magnetic force I couldn't fight. The rain finally started outside, tapping against the windows like 1,000 tiny confessions, while I sat there shaking, the guilt twisting deep but the darker pull. It only grew stronger, whispering that maybe this was the closest we'd been in months. And then, from down the hall, the soft creak began again. Hesitant at first, then finding its rhythm once more. My hands clenched on my knees, breath caught somewhere in my chest as I listened, torn between walking back and staying right where I was, the storm inside me matching the one outside. After that night, the air between us thickened like humidity before a storm, heavy and impossible to ignore. She started leaving the bedroom door slightly ajar on purpose some evenings, just a few inches of warm light spilling into the hallway like an unspoken question. I'd come home from another long day, the weight of my briefcase still in my hand, and pause at the threshold, ears catching those familiar hushed sounds drifting out. Soft, uneven breathing that rose and fell like waves I couldn't look away from. Instead of pushing the door wide or calling out her name, I'd sink down right there in the hallway, back against the wall, the cool wood floor pressing into my palms as I sat listening. My own pulse thummed loud in my ears, drowning out the distant hum of the fridge. The vanilla scent would sneak through the crack, faint but laced now with that sharper edge of her need, wrapping around me until my chest felt tight. Every time the voice in my head screamed, "This is destroying us. This is turning everything sacred into something secret and wrong," I'd clench my jaw and push it down, telling myself she clearly wanted me to know, that the ajar door was her way of saying she needed this. And maybe I did too, in this twisted. Last week the stakes climbed higher, the risk pressing against my ribs like a hand I couldn't shake off. I didn't just listen from the shadows anymore. I stood openly in the doorway while she was lost in it, her eyes fluttering open mid-breath and locking straight onto mine across the dim room. She froze, sheet halfway up, cheeks flushing that deep rose I remembered from our earliest nights together. Shame flickered across her face, raw and trembling, but this time she didn't yank the covers higher right away. Her lips parted, a silent question hanging between us thicker than any words. "Keep going," I whispered, my voice hoarse and foreign to my own ears, barely carrying over the space. My hand stayed braced on the doorframe, knuckles whitening as if that grip could hold back the moral weight crushing down on me, unturning our marriage into something unrecognizable, twisting what should be ours into this solitary dance I only watch from the edge. Yet the rush of seeing her like that, vulnerable, raw, her breath catching in that particular way, it flooded me with a dark thrill I hated admitting. She hesitated, eyes wide with the war playing out inside her, excitement and embarrassment battling until something shifted. Then she continued, slow at first, her gaze never fully leaving mine, the rhythm building again while I remained rooted there, the air between us electric and humming with everything we weren't saying. The guilt hit harder afterward, sitting alone in the living room with the light slow, my hands still trembling from the proximity. How had we drifted this far, where her private moments became something we both circled like moths to a forbidden flame? But the memory of her eyes meeting mine, that flicker of surrender mixed with panic, made me rationalize it all as the most honest we'd been in years. No more pretending the spark was gone, just this strange new gravity pulling us closer, even as it threatened to break us apart. Yesterday she finally broke, the tension snapping like a thread pulled too tight. After one of those doorway moments, she came out to the living room with tears already shining in her eyes, her robe clutched close as if it could shield what we'd both seen. She sank onto the couch across from me, voice cracking as she asked if I still loved her at all or if I was just getting off on catching her like this, on turning her into something to watch from the edges. The question landed like a gut punch, stealing the air from my lungs, forcing me right there to face the binary choice clawing at my insides. Shut it all down, pull her close and try to rebuild the normal intimacy we'd let slip away, or lean into this strange new current where her private pleasure became something we navigated together, even if it meant living with the constant risk of emotional ruin. I didn't answer right away, the silence stretching between us heavy with rain-scented air from the open window. To mine raced through every quiet evening we'd shared lately, every creak I'd ignored, every tie-dimmer door had tempted me closer. The ache of missing her touch warred with this darker hunger that had taken root, leaving me torn in a way that made my hands shake as I reached for her. But before I could speak, her tears fell faster, and in that raw moment the pull between us felt stronger than ever. A gravity I wasn't sure I could resist anymore, even as it whispered of everything we might lose. I pulled her close right there on the couch, my arms wrapping around her trembling frame as the tears soaked into my shirt. Her body melted against mine in that familiar way, warm and soft through the thin robe, yet everything felt edged with something new. A fragile surrender that made my chest tighten. "If this is what you need when I'm not enough," I murmured against her hair, the words tasting like both relief and dash, "then keep going whenever you want. I'll wait in the living room, or I'll watch if that's what we both crave now." She didn't answer with words, just buried her face deeper into my chest, her breath hitching in small, uneven waves that brushed warm against my neck. I felt the tension ease from her shoulders, a quiet exhale that carried the faint trace of vanilla still clinging to her skin, but underneath it lingered that sharper note. The one that had started all this. My hand stroked her back in slow circles, grounding us both, yet my mind whispered how close we were to the edge. 8 years of shared mornings and quiet dinners, reduced to this hallway dance of almost and what-ifs. The house settled into a strange, new rhythm. She'd leave the door cracked just enough on those evenings when the weight of the day pressed too heavy, and I'd find myself drawn there, not quite stepping inside but never fully walking away. The air between rooms grew thick with unspoken understanding, her soft breath scaring like secrets I wasn't meant to keep. I'd sit in the living room with the lights dimmed low, fingers tracing the worn fabric of the armchair, telling myself this was care. This was us finding a way forward. But the ache never dulled. It bloomed hotter, pulling me toward the threshold again and again, where her eyes would sometimes meet mine across the shadows, wide and questioning, before fluttering shut. I still love her. God, I do. The way her laugh used to fill the kitchen on lazy Sundays, the gentle press of her hand in mine during walks around the block. Those pieces haven't vanished. They're just buried now under this heavier layer, this magnetic pull that turns every ordinary moment into something trembling with possibility. Yet lying awake beside her at night, the sheets cool between us, I catch myself replaying that first frozen instant, her panic, the hurried cover-up, the way time stretched thin as our worlds collided. Should I have stormed and then demanded we fight for the simple closeness we once had? The question circles endlessly, leaving my stomach knotted even as a darker part of me craves the next time the door tempts me closer. Our marriage isn't broken, exactly. It's shifted. Like a favorite photograph left too long in the sun, colors bleeding into something softer, more haunting. She moves through our days with a quiet grace now, brushing past me in the hallway with a touch that lingers a second too long, her breath catching just enough to remind me. And I let it. I wait. Because fighting it feels like denying the truth we've uncovered, that sometimes the space between us holds more electricity than the moments we used to fill completely. But in the quiet hours, when rain taps against the windows and the house feels too still, the guilt returns like an old friend. It whispers of everything we're risking. The easy trust, the uncomplicated love that didn't need doors left ajar or hearts laid bare in fragments. Part of me mourns that version of us, the one that didn't know this kind of hunger. Another part knows we've stepped too far into the current to swim back and changed. So tell me, everyone, what would you have done if you caught your wife like that? Do you think I made the right choice by encouraging it instead of fighting it? This is my real life, raw and messy, and if you want the even more intimate details of what's happened since then, let me know in the comments.